All right, I have my live button, which means hopefully, well, Kelly, I know you're out there. So hi, Kelly, thanks. Hello, B. Devlin. Okay, good. So we're working with the chat. I know that some of y'all are watching us. So welcome to our October caffeine chat. Thank you so much for carving out an hour out of your Sunday evening to join us. And it feels like fall finally, which I know I was really excited about. And we also look like fall. So Susie and I didn't plan this, but she's got this most gorgeous like mustard color on. I'm in like a cranberry. My mug for the evening is this pumpkin. I don't know if I've used this one yet on the chat or not, but there is a cup of decaf tea. I was telling Susie I had a little bit of a longer night. I had a little accident with my little guy and he's fine, but just one of those ones where you wake up a couple times at night and check on them. And I know you all as parents have been in that boat before. Had a little nick on his head, so he's good, but I took a nap and I knew I needed some caffeine to hang out with you all. So welcome. We're so glad that you're here. We have a enormously jam-packed hopefully informational hour for you. So I'm going to do a quick overview of what we're talking about, and then I'll turn it over to Susie. She's going to start off with a quick recap of Parent Family Day and the links, I think, for survey and other good stuff like that. I actually glossed over that, Suze. Sorry. So you're going to post, Parent Family Day stuff. And then I'm going to dive in and spend a heck of a lot of time talking about academics. The majority of the questions that were submitted ahead of time had to do with it. That was kind of where we thought it was going, right? When we planned out what we wanted to talk about at these sessions. We know that October, there's a really big focus on academics. So I'm going to cover all sorts of things about advising, mid-year progress reports, academic calendar, major changes was a big one that came up, and a little bit about study abroad. So I'm going to cover those topics. And then there were a couple of miscellaneous ones pertaining to like the bill and housing and some miscellaneous kind of topics that we'll cover, and Susie's going to cover at the end. And then we'll kind of tease what we're going to think about in November and go from there. So hopefully that fulfills the next 58 minutes. As usual, if you sign in to your Gmail, you can post your questions or your comments live in the chat. I will be monitoring that throughout the course of the evening, but when I'm talking, I can't do both, and I have a million tabs open to send you links. This is going to be a very link heavy night. So ahead of time, if you want to get your mouse ready to do some clicking and some pulling up so that you can save them. I mean, they're all very easy to find, but we're going to make it even easier and we're going to give them to you. So I will be kind of toggling back and forth between links and putting things in, but I will scroll back when Susie kind of gets started with her miscellaneous stuff and just follow up with any questions I didn't get. And then she can interrupt me if there's anything major that comes up. So, all right, I think we're good to go. Let's get this party started. Susie, it's off to you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Lindsay, and good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. So yes, I wanted to start with kind of just doing a reflection with the Homecoming and Parent and Family Day, which was on Saturday, October 2nd. So, first and foremost, it was just, for those of you who were able to attend, it was just amazing to see you all on campus and to be able to spend some time with you all and kind of see you enjoying the campus with your student and the various activities and things that we had going on. So just wanted to start with saying how wonderful it was to see you all. And that being said, we're always looking for continual improvement, also seeing like what were things that you really enjoyed, what were things that maybe you wish you saw, other things that you enjoyed on campus, things like that. So we have a feedback survey. So I'll have Lindsay send that in the chat. So if anyone, you can find this right on the Parent and Family Day page that we have. So if you attended and wouldn't mind it'd probably take you 5 minutes to complete that feedback survey, that would be fantastic. So Lindsay will send that along. And we also, along with our communications, just wanted to touch on that. For anyone who doesn't know, we have a parent and family email list. So this is a quick little sign up that you can do if you haven't done so already. And this is where we send our parent and family newsletter, which we send out quarterly. This is also with any updates that come from campus, whether COVID related or other kind of campus-wide updates that we feel that families should be aware of. That's the email list that we pull from. So if you are not signed up for that, would highly recommend that you do sign up for that. And Lindsay can send that link as well. So those were I know Lindsay has a ton to talk about related to academics, so we'll probably switch over to her and kind of make sure that we cover all of the great questions that you had, and then also kind of the key topics that Lindsay and I know are really prime during this time. So, Lindsay, I guess I'll switch it over to you. Anything related to Parent and Family Day or that communication list, feel free to send it in the chat, and then I can hop on after Lindsay's done if there's questions related to that I can help to answer. All right, Lindsay, off to you for the academic stuff.
Let's dig in. I have like 3 pages of notes, which I didn't really see coming, but I was like brain dumping all of the things I wanted to talk about. And then all of a sudden it was like 3 pages. And I was like, great. So let's talk about where your student is right now. All right. They are fresh off of fall break. Hopefully you saw them. If you didn't, that's okay. But I hope that regardless of whether they were at home or whether they stayed on campus, that they really had a good opportunity to just, unplug, rest, recharge the batteries, maybe catch up on some things that they didn't have a chance to, they fell a little bit behind on. It's a really nice kind of breather for those pieces. I know that I really enjoyed the time as well. It was actually convenient because there was a positive case in my little guy's classroom. So I was unexpectedly home last week with him. And, good news that he's negative, but it was a nice opportunity to just kind of press a reset button for myself as well. And that's hopefully the goal where they're at. This is a very heavy, we're in the mid-semester. So the midterms are happening. And depending on what major your students in and what school that they live in, it could have been really busy for them prior to fall break, right? It could have been very, very busy for them now, right? So they came off, tail end of last week and into this week might be very heavy for them. Sometimes it could look like multiple exams. Sometimes it's just a couple of big projects or papers, again, depending on kind of where your student is and the type of degree that they're going for. It could vary a bit, but this kind of window in mid-October is a pretty hectic time for midterms and assessments and those types of things. So that's kind of where your student is. And I want to take to start off by really quickly talking about mid-year progress reports. So mid-year progress reports are done middle of each semester, or I'm sorry, I keep saying mid-year, that they're mid-semester project reports are done mid-semester. And it is essentially a stoplight system, right? So every faculty member, every professor, usually, again, typically it's after they've graded the midterms, right? And they have some sizable kind of projects or exams to be able to make an assessment of how your student's doing in their class. They will enter into the pause system, one of 3 colors, right? Green, your student is good to go. They are doing fine. Continue business as usual. Keep up the great work. If they have a yellow for a class, that could be, they're doing okay, but there might be an issue or 2 over here that we, want to make sure that your student's aware of so that they can finish off the semester strong. Maybe they're kind of like borderline and we want to be able to pull that grade up a bit. So that could be kind of a yellow kind of caution sign or color, if you will. And then red, that's the, okay, stop. We got to have a conversation. You need to come in and see me. Like we've got some issues with how you're performing in the class so far. So it's a pretty straightforward system, right? Green, yellow, red. If your student, obviously receives the yellow or the red, that's a conversation that they should be reaching out and setting up a time with their professor to meet, go to office hours, whatever, works for them to be able to kind of figure out, what's going on there. So that's a little bit about that, even though, and this is where I get parents that are like, hey, oh, Macy, perfect, right? Do parents have access to view the grades and interim reports? So this goes back to FERPA. So your student had to sign off on giving you access to seeing their grades and seeing the mid-semester progress report colors, right? So I think that I say this all the time when this comes up, I think we're at about 3% of the undergraduate population that allows their parent to see the grades. So chances are the majority of you who are listening tonight don't have access to that. That is a conversation 100% you need to have with your student. But what I like to stress at this point is that just because you can't, if you're in a position where they will not let you, right? Or they don't agree to having you see the grades based on FERPA, that doesn't mean that you can't contact the Office of Records and Registration with questions about the process and how it works. Frank Cooper is the executive director. He talks a lot at the orientation events that I run over the summer for our new students and families. He's very big on that, right? if you call up and say, what is my son's, mid-semester progress report for his physics class, they're not going to be able to say the color, right? But they can explain to you how the process works. They can find, and give you some suggestions or ideas for your student to reach out and those types of things. They're very approachable, right? But they're not going to be able to divulge into specific information because of FERPA laws. Another question came in, do we have any notification mailed to parents if yellow or red? No. Nope. Anything in this space, your student is the primary contact from here on out, right? So Federal Education Rights and Privacy Act is essentially kind of the educational equivalent to HIPAA. So your students over the age of 18, they are the ones that are the primary contact. You get nothing. It's not old school, right? So Frank always jokes about that with my new families. His parents would come home or he'd come home and his parents would have the report card written. They used to send it home in the mail and, they'd have it open and take a look when he was in high school. And no, that's not how it works. So at least in college, thanks to FERPA. So you won't have any notification, which is why I really encourage you just to have that conversation with your students. Say, hey, like, you're halfway through the semester. How's it going? And even though you would think intuitively that's a bit more, easy for my new families, right, to go through if you have a first year student. Same thing for sophomores and juniors. You have your kid could be having a really great kind of first, maybe they had a good first year or second year, but they have hit a bump in the road in their junior core classes. And they have that first 400 level class that's given them a hard time, and what they were doing before isn't working now. So regardless of where your student is in terms of class year here at the college, I think just that touch-in is really nice, because this is a very stressful time and you want to just be able to be that sounding board. And yes, they may not tell you what the color is, but you can talk to them about resources. You can talk to them about tutoring. I'm going to handle that and tackle that in a couple of minutes. So just because you don't have access shouldn't prevent you from having the conversation with your student, and B, having the conversation with records and registration if you do want some clarification on FERPA, on the process that TCNJ follows as a result of that national law. Can students sign the FERPA document mid-semester to allow you to have access? I'm pretty sure, Macy, great question. I'm pretty sure they can give you auxiliary access at any time. So regardless, that's not something that you have to wait for in the beginning of the semester. It's like something to where you'd only be able to do it at the start of the semester or at certain times of year, like open enrollment. I think that's something that you can, if your student decides to opt in to do that, it's a pretty instantaneous. It's a relatively quick turnover in that process to be able to give you access to that. And then April, yeah. So the mid-semester progress reports, they are going to be available through, I'll check the academic calendar. I believe it's October 28th. I'll get to that in a minute, but yes. And again, some of them might be posted now. Some of them might be waiting depending on the major, the department, the faculty member, the class. They want essentially enough graded materials and observation of performance for your student in that class to be able to make that assessment of how they're doing, right? And so for some people, they do have until the end of October. So I bet some are posted now, and I bet others, might trickle in a little bit in the next week and a half here or so. Okay, so I also, first link that I am going to send you is something that I think never gets enough to, this is a link that should be pretty much saved for every student, and I don't know that it is. It's a link to the gold mine of records and registration, and it is a whole list of pause tutorials. They have PDFs with screenshots that will walk you through, and they also, for most of them, have videos as well. This is really helpful for, again, where to go to find your mid-year progress report, right? Like, how does your mid-semester progress report? If I say mid-year, it's just mid-semester. How to find that? That's a very logical question that your student might not know. So there is a link to be able to find that in there. As we kind of approach now into registration, there's going to be even more helpful PDFs and tutorials on how to navigate for the certain types of things they have to do for registration. I'm going to talk about registration in a minute. Suze.
Yes. So I found the date, by the way. It says fall regular mid-semester progress reports are, quote, ongoing through Tuesday, October 26th.
Awesome.
FYI.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, I thought they had until the end of the month based on the academic calendar, but that link will be able to help your student navigate where to go and pause to be able to find the mid-semester progress reports. So I want to take a pause right now to jump a little bit and talk about tutoring. Okay. And the reason is this kind of blended nicely, because let's say that your student has some of those yellows and reds. Maybe they started off the semester not thinking that they needed tutoring support or help with classes, but whatever they've been doing isn't working, or maybe in the beginning the content seemed okay, but you get to the middle of the semester and then all of a sudden those foundational concepts for your class, if you have one or two kind of pokes in that foundation, and then now all of a sudden you're doing kind of additional layering on top of that, and that work is not going so well, sometimes it can just be as easy as circling back to the beginning and kind of figuring that piece out, right? So I want to really quickly cover some basics with the tutoring piece. So first off, there are traditionally 3 ways that students can do tutoring at TCNJ. They can do direct one-on-one tutoring, which is typically in person. They can do group drop-in advising. So essentially, if they're ever, a really good example is Math 127 or 129, which is our calculus course, right, for our first-year students. So, or entry-level math if they're taking that. So they will have like a drop-in session to where they'll have a tutor there, but anybody who is struggling, who has questions, can kind of come in and drop into those hours specifically for that particular class. And then there's e-tutoring, right? So the whole world, obviously, there's just so many vast options in terms of doing your tutoring virtually in that space. So at the start of the fall 2021 semester, everything was remote. I did just, or virtual, I should say. So even like the one-on-one tutoring and the group advisement, the group drop-ins, those were all happening virtually. And I just went back as I was updating all of us this information to share with you today. And it looks like the group drop-in sessions are now in person. So for mathematics and statistics and physics, those 2 areas and disciplines, they do have a schedule on their website with the drop-in hours and which tutor is going to be available there for that piece. I believe, I don't remember about the one-on-one. I didn't go down too far down the rabbit hole of the website to do that. So I'm going to share with you 2 really quick things. Okay, hold on. I already shared with you that one. Oh, I'm sorry. I did have the link. So here specifically, let me circle back for a second. This is how to find your mid-semester progress report. So let me throw that in the chat. So this is how your student can log into Pause. And it's on that site I just gave you. I just gave you the PDF to be a little bit more concise there. And then let's move into the Tutoring Center. So here, don't pay attention to the website link because it seems a bit wrong, but this is the general information about tutoring at TCNJ. And then the next one I'm going to give you is, I just reviewed this whole document today. It's a PDF for how to sign up for tutoring. It has tons of really great information depending on how your student wants to receive help, right? But this is the point where we know that we're going to have some students coming out of the fold here who maybe didn't start that semester that way, but now very much after the mid-year progress reports have realized that they could use a little bit of supplemental support to get that done. I think another really important note that I wanted to mention before I quickly shift gears a little bit is that just because a lot of the services are online and we're kind of transitioning back to more some in-person things, that doesn't mean that the professional staff office is only online, right? So the tutoring center hours, right? They're professional staff people who work in there 8:30 to 4:30, weekday, Monday to Friday. There is nothing that is preventing your student from dropping in between 8:30 to 4:30 to just speak to a professional staff person in that office to say, hey, I have these materials, but I really could just use some quick guidance on like how to go about doing it, what's the right approach or whatnot. So even though some of these services are a bit more, in the virtual space, that does not prevent your student from dropping into Roscoe West and having a conversation with a real life person. They have a whole bunch of graduate assistants who work in that office. They typically split up tutoring a bit. There's almost kind of 2 houses under the umbrella. So you have all of your kind of math and science folks in one corner, and then you have your humanities and some others in the other, pretty much everybody else in the other corner. So again, just really stressing that even if some of these options are virtual and only for the time being, you have support on campus and professional staff, and tell your student to drop in. They're so nice over there and they'd be more than happy to help navigate, explain some of the details about PDF and those types of things. Another point, so that kind of wrapped up general tutoring stuff. The other kind of overlapping piece or complementary piece to that is the Center for Student Success. So you could find right now, you're having the conversation with your student, you're kind of just checking in and saying how things are going, that maybe content for the class isn't a big concern right now, right? Like content-wise, they're doing okay, but maybe they're struggling with time management. Maybe they have points taken off because they're submitting assignments late, right? And they're not as organized, and they don't have that planner kind of set up with what they need to do and timelines to get things done, and going back and really reviewing the syllabus, right? There's so many students who don't read the syllabus, and the syllabus is just so important to mapping out your entire semester and figuring it out. Some of those time management pieces, or even just studying tips, right? And ways to study more effectively, preparing for things like midterms and finals. I was a horrible test taker, so I would have totally benefited from somebody kind of helping me navigate, not panicking and freaking out. And, it would, like, the entire world would go blank as I was sitting at this, looking at this exam question. It was awful, right? Those things, separate from the content, are also things that students are going to struggle with the entire semester, or potentially now, right? They've got the mid-year grades and maybe they look okay, but they're starting to get a little anxious about what they're looking forward to the next, rest of the 8 weeks of the semester, however many more they have left to go. So I really just wanted to plug and remind people that the Center for Student Success is here, and they're awesome, and you should go. So a couple things on that. One, here are a link to the rest of the workshops for the fall 21 semester. So CSS fall 2021 workshops. They've had a few, and I believe they recorded 1 or 2 of them. So if your student didn't go in particular to the time management one in the beginning of September, it was fantastic. They can, I think, watch that recording a bit later, but they do have 2 more coming up this Wednesday, learning styles, and then preparing for finals on December 1st. So I wanted to share that with you, so that your student had that information. And then the other thing to keep in mind, hold on a second, let me just toggle back to my notes. Yeah. Is, and I'll wrap all of this up. So that was it with Center for Student Success. So I think along all of these points, the really important thing here is just to remember that it's okay to ask for help. We are trying so hard. And I know, Susie, you're on the Press Pause project, and we've been doing a lot of this, but there's a big shift right now and a focus right now at TCNJ on breaking this persona for the perfect student. We have such high achieving students who put so much pressure on themselves, right? That they don't want to ask for help. They don't know how to ask for help. That's where you as the parent could be so supportive to them, right? And I focus a lot with my lens is very much on the first year incoming students and my new transfer students. But I remember junior year, that fall semester junior year was a bear, right? And I think I got to that point where I was like, I should know better. I'm a junior. I'm an upperclassman. I've done 2 years of college. I should have my crap together, right? Man, I wish that I had gone to the tutoring center, because I almost failed differential equations, and that was not a pretty scene right there. So I know that we're really focusing on that, but that's just, and Suze, I can let you jump in for a second if you want, but I really want to stress to you all tonight that it doesn't matter if you're a senior, right? If you need the help, just go out and ask for it. There's so many people on this campus who would just jump up and say, yes, please. Like, I would love to help you. Let's talk and figure out what the deal is. And I just feel like sometimes our upper class students, they don't do that.
Yeah. And so, Linz, I do want to, you had mentioned the Press Pause project. So real brief, background on that is, really talking about focusing on resiliency and kind of debunking this, myth of the perfect student. So, we've got all across class years, there may be, you might see we have such highly involved students and, high kind of expectations for themselves. And so that can get really tough, especially if you're seeing someone else, like, this student leader that you think they've got it all together. So this project was actually brought to us by a former leader within student government, and it's a partnership between student government and student affairs, really talking about that piece of resiliency and being able to look at your setbacks and see them as learning opportunities, and how can you move forward from that. And so it's a really awesome initiative that we just launched this semester, and it's called Press Pause Project. And Lindsay, if you wanted to send that, it's just presspause.tcnj.edu, and it's pause like the TCNJ Lions. But just knowing that resource is available for students, this is something that's going to be and is already beginning to be ingrained throughout the campus. So also on the academic side of the house, we've got partners, throughout all the divisions on campus. So really excited about that initiative and kind of having that be a focal point and really a piece that is important, and a peer-to-peer piece too. So not only having staff involvement with departmental workshops and things like that, but also having that peer-to-peer and seeing, hey, this person was, I kind of was looking up to them, and now they've spoken to the struggles that they've gone through and kind of how they sought some help, whether it's academic related or mental health related, or just getting some additional support from whoever might be helpful for them. But then also, yes, they've fallen too, and then this is how they've been able to get back up, and that a lot of people do that. Most people, everyone does it. So that is out there. So thanks, Linz, for bringing that up, and just a little plug about it.
No, I appreciate that. Thanks, Susie. And it's so funny because I was a undergrad. I was a strict C's get degrees person. Okay, full confession. I was in the most, I was at the top undergraduate program for my major, and I probably shouldn't have been there, right? So I was on the C's get degrees. Let me just make it out alive. But as a graduate student at TCNJ, I don't know what it was about the culture, but even at graduate school level, like I was really focused on the numbers and obviously working really hard in the class, but it all of a sudden it mattered more. And there were several moments where I even had to check myself, and I'm 30, 36, 37, 38 when I'm going through that program. And I had to be like, calm down. You know what I mean? Like, you need to be listening to the advice you're giving all of these other students and parents. So thanks so much for sharing that. More to come. I think that's just a really amazing thing that we're doing to kind of shift that focus. All right. So circling back, I do want to take a quick, before I start talking about advisors, because I know everybody, you have warning, the advisor piece is coming. Okay. So let's dig in, and I am going to tag this a little bit with the academic calendar. And actually, I'll throw the academic calendar in there first. So if you are not familiar, this is a major link that you should have saved as a parent. Excuse me, to have a heads up, because your student is focused on the work, right? They are having the experience, college experience. They are putting in so much time and effort into the classroom that it's really nice in a way that, again, another way that you can be supportive to your student is just having a really good understanding of how the academic schedule and calendar works for each semester. Save that link, star it, put it wherever you want in your bookmarks. That is a really helpful tool. And we're going to talk a little bit more about pre-registration for the spring in a minute, because those were kind of two of the biggest things, right? We want to talk about advising. We want to talk about registration for your spring classes. So let's start with how advising works at TCNJ. Okay, we are a faculty-based model. There's typically in higher education two primary models. You have a centralized academic model where everybody's in one spot. All the advisors are in one spot, and all of the students get funneled through there. And there's a couple different versions of the centralized model. Or you have straight up faculty to student, direct faculty led advising, which is what we have. So your student was assigned an academic advisor, a faculty member who teaches full time in their specific academic program of study. If your student is a school of education major or is already upperclassman who has already declared and has a dual major, they are going to have two advisors, right? They're going to have the advisor in each area, right? Depending on where they are. So all dual majors, school of education automatically built in. Or if your student has added on a second major at some point here, if they're an upperclassman, upper class student, are going to have two advisors. All right. So how do you find them in Pause? That little tutorial link I gave you, super helpful, how to find them. It is on page 1. I just went in tonight and went into my old student record, right, and said, okay, I actually don't think, let me see if I can find it up. Hold on, let's pause for a second and see if I can share my screen and pull up the snapshot, because I did save it. Okay, here we go. I'm going to try to do this really quickly because I think that it will be quite helpful. Oh, there you go. Where'd you go? All right, so let's do the share screen. I will show you my little, okay, share screen. Okay, all these buttons. Okay, here we go. All right, so there it is. Do you all see it? Susie, can you unmute yourself and give me a heads up that yes, you can?
It's a blank screen for me right now.
Oh, great. Well, isn't that lovely? Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, what was that?
Up right when you...
Okay, hold on. Let me.
Needed a moment.
Okay, I'll put it back on real quick. All right, so I just took a screenshot of what it looked like when I logged in, right? Oh, where did it? Oh no, and now it disappeared. Okay. Anyway, it's very straightforward. It says in the box to the right, program advisor. For me, it was listed the MBA director when I was a graduate student here. For, your student, it will have, their advisor name, and it's typically, I think, an email. I'm not sure if there's a telephone number attached to it, but if there is, if there's not, it's a very easy thing to find on the TCNJ directory. That's where they go to find the advisors. The advisor's on there. The other nice thing is that there's also like holds and to-dos. So the very first page, I will admit to you, it's not a very user-friendly system, but it is smack dab on page 1. This is your advisor. So how to go in and find that. Step 1 is how they find that there. I think the other question was reaching out, and 1 or 2 people had said that their student had reached out to the advisor and hadn't heard back yet. I don't think that might not necessarily be uncommon, right? I think that typically, and so this is specifically for the new students this semester. So if your student is a new transfer student in the fall or was a new first-year student this semester, they actually will have a hold on their account. They're not allowed to register for the spring until they meet with their advisor. And that's because we handle the pre-registration process over the summer. And we want to make sure that they're meeting with somebody who can walk them through the sequence for their major and make sure that they're not screwing up and that they're in the classes that they need to be in for the spring semester in order to move things along and graduate in that 4-year time frame, hopefully, or 2 to 3 years for my transfer students to be able to get out of here, on time. So there is a hold if you have an upper class student. There is not a hold every semester to meet with the advisor, unless certain departments might have different, I say that broadly, but I can't speak for every specific department if they have unique kind of situations for that. So if your student has emailed them prior to fall break, I would say give them like another week and a half. Sometimes, the faculty members, if they're grading or if they were in the process of facilitating exams for the mid-year, the mid-year assessments, they might have not necessarily had the time, but this is going to be the next 4 weeks are going to be the time frame for the new students that they're going to have that initial conversation with the faculty member. If your student is ever not, emailing the faculty member and not getting a reply and is just getting frustrated, I keep saying faculty member, advisor. If your student is emailing their faculty advisor and is just not getting anywhere, which I don't typically hear of all that often, because I think at a school like TCNJ with the size perspective, that's just not something that we typically encounter. That next step for them is to email the department chair, right? That information is available on the website, right? So every department, right, has a chair who is more of a 12-month employee versus a 10-month employee. They have a slightly less teaching load. I think they teach 1 less class because they have other administrative responsibilities for running the department. That person is kind of the next step up from the faculty, from the general faculty who work in that department. So if you ever run into an issue with getting a hold of an advisor or a general question, that department chair is a really good person to reach out to if you have concerns. So that's kind of the process for how your student, at least the new student, should be communicating, or if you have an upper class student who is having a hard time getting a hold of a faculty member. What I will say here, just as like a brief, hold on, let me make sure I don't lose my place here. Just as a brief kind of, plug here, let's extend some grace to everybody, right? So if your student isn't hearing back from their faculty advisor, that email to the department chair should be like, hey, so-and-so is not getting back to me and I've emailed them 18 million times and I'm really blah, 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 blah. Like, life happens. Okay. I was home last week, all week, because my kid couldn't go back to daycare because somebody sent their kid to school with a pending PCR test. And then the PCR test came back positive while the kid was in school with all of our kids. So the entire classroom shut down for a week. I couldn't get as much done last week as I wanted to, right? So I am very big right now in the process of extending grace to everybody. It's just, there's a lot of things that are pieces and parts that are moving on. So just a word of encouragement for your student. If you don't hear back right away, if you're sending an email to the department chair, I think, your student just says, hey, I've reached out a couple times. I'm just not getting any feedback. I'm starting to get a little stressed about, registration for the spring. What would you suggest I do? Right? There's a way to go about doing this. And I think it's a really good kind of, we're teaching learning lessons here along the way about how your students should be interacting with our faculty and with their professors and with people who are advising position. I'll talk a little bit more about a session we have coming up this week to help with that. And I think it's just really important that they remember that your faculty members are people too, right? And everybody's just doing the best that they can, I think, in life right now. Kat, yes, I did have a note. I was going to speak to that a little bit later, but since you asked now, the provisional students, any questions about GPA requirements, matriculation from the spring, right now, they need to go to Gina Morano, who's been the person who's been their advisor. She has been emailing them on the regular since June. That is the person that they are going to keep in touch with. And when they do that matriculation process into the spring semester, they will be assigned a faculty advisor in the department that they matriculate into. And Gina in the Center for Student Success will help you navigate and have those students help them navigate that entire process when we get to that point. Yep. So good question about that. And I'm glad that you brought that up. So just a little plug about that. Okay, let's talk a little bit about, I talked about radio silence, about them. Next step for so the only other reminders, and this is a little bit about registration. So on that link that I gave you to the academic calendar, you will see that the registration window for spring 2022, it starts on Tuesday, November 2nd. It goes to Friday, November 12th. All right, here's how that works. Not everybody goes in and picks classes at the same time, and not everybody gets to do it whenever they want. So they are assigned a specific day and a specific time based on the number of credits that they have. So on Tuesday, November 2nd, what did I just say? Oh, shoot, I just put it in there. November 2nd. On Tuesday, November 2nd, the seniors are starting. Okay. The first years and the sophomores are not starting pre-registration process on Tuesday the 2nd. Okay. It goes based on the number of majors. Or a number of credits, excuse me. So what will happen? Let's just put it in here. So I gave everybody the calendar. I think I'm good on that. Breaks, all sorts of other stuff. This PDF right here will tell your student exactly where to go to find their appointment window when it is put in there. So there will be a specific date and there will be a specific time that they can go in. They will do all of the work ahead of time, right? They're going to meet with their advisor. They're going to plot out kind of ideally, okay, here are the classes I know I need to take. Here's the one or two, if you had wiggle room in your schedule, that I'd like to take. Here are the ideal, these students go through kind of mock setups of like, I want, kind of these classes at these times, preferably, right? If your student, is not an 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. person and they're ideally looking to get some evening classes, they do a lot of that. I don't suggest for the student to wait until the appointment window to figure out where they want to go, right? They should be ready to go with probably a backup scenario or two for that piece, so that when they log in for their appointment window time, they're going to be able to go through. And if there was a class that they wanted and there's no more seats available, what's that backup look like? What's that second section that you'd like to get into? Or another faculty member that you might prefer for that class. You heard really good things about X, Y, or Z, and you'd like to eventually take a class with them. But it's all based on the credit system. So our first years and our sophomores are kind of that week 2, and then your juniors and your seniors are typically towards the front end. If you were a new transfer student, I don't remember how that, you know what? I don't know. I stumped myself with my own question. I don't remember if the credits they had, I believe the credits that they have from accrued and earned from their previous institution, that counts. So if you came in with an associate's degree, you're not going to register at the very end with the first year students because you've only taken, 4 course units here at the college. You'll be enrolling with the juniors and the traditional students that had the same number of credits as you did. So I'm pretty sure that's the case. We'll go back and double check if I'm wrong on that. So that's kind of how this is looking for the registration window. And again, all depends on timing. And then, very big thing. So I'm hosting a couple of upcoming events that I am going to be blasting to at least the new students, but it will also be in this week at TCNJ newsletter for the rest of the upper class students. One of them on November 3rd, which is day 2 of registration period. We're going to be doing a review, which is helpful very helpful for the new students, but very helpful too for maybe some of my sophomores and my juniors who were a little bit out of it and could use a refresh. We're going to review how to go about doing this in pause, and we're teaming up with the Center for Student Success. So they have groups of students called peer academic coaches, I think. Peer advising, I think they've switched the name, peer advising or peer academic coaches. These are students and they are available to help your student navigate this process. We're doing a joint session together, right? But we are also, they have hours. So if you go to the Center for, if your student goes to the Center for Student Success website, they can sign up and for a drop-in appointment or to do a specific time and set that up with a peer advising coach. And they can have somebody specifically help them figure out what they're doing from a logistical standpoint. This is not a student who's going to be able to say, okay, you should take this class, and this class. It could be somebody in a completely different academic school or major, but this is going to be somebody who helps them kind of feel a little bit more confident with how they're navigating the system so that when their time and their date comes up, they are ready to go and cooking from there. Sandy, do credits for dual enrollment high school classes add to what they currently have? No. My understanding is that the dual enrollment does not, I don't think it, You know what, Sandy? I don't know. I don't know that I can say confidently whether that's a yes or no. I will have to look into that for you and I can circle back. If you send the student transitions at tcnj.edu an email, I will take a look at that this week and let you know, because my initial reaction was no, but definitely not for AP scores. But if dual enrollment, if you were carrying credit over from an institution from high school, I don't know. So let me circle back on that. But if you send me an email, I'll find out. Okay, so that's a little bit, just a quick pause about the, pause pun intended, about the academic calendar and the registration process. Did you want to jump in, Susie?
I wasn't sure if you saw it. So Macy had a question specifically, and I don't know if you were going to jump into it related, because I know you were going to talk a little bit about changing majors. I do not know the answer to that. So
that's coming.
Okay.
Oh, that's coming. Perfect segue, because I am literally going right back into changing majors. So that's kind of a big, hopefully, overview of advising, and I hope, well, general overview. Obviously, it's couldn't cover all of it today, but yeah. So that was a good chunk for there. Okay, let's talk about changing majors. Wow,
and wait,
so
Lindsay,
many questions.
I was gonna say, before we get into that, so Sandy, I really appreciated your response. Her response was, I should have him reach out to you. So anytime that there's a situation where you say, you can be the coach and say, hey, even if you found out what department they need to reach out to, like, hey, I think that markets and registration would actually be able to answer that question for you, or something like that. Yeah, we're really try to encourage that. So just wanted to say thanks, Sandy.
You rock, Sandy. All right, so let's talk about switching majors. Okay. So the question was, I got a handful of questions about how to do it, timeline, X, Y, and Z. So here are some general tips. Process and timeline is going to vary significantly. There is no standard across the campus, right? Because it all depends on where your student is right now and where they want to go, right? So I'm going to give you probably one of the most important, another thing too. So let me stress this. So sometimes it could just be as easy as a form, right? Other times the department's going to go, oh, you know what? We want you to take X, Y, Z, or these 2 classes, and you need to have a certain GPA in those classes to apply to transfer. Sometimes it's just as long as you take this prerequisite course and you get a C or a B or whatever. There's a lot of variation, and there's and the timelines on when you can apply in. And there are some majors that are closed, right? There are some majors that are like, you know what? We're not accepting any internal transfer students, right? And I say internal transfer because your student's a current student at TCNJ. They're not a student at another institution that's looking to transfer in. Okay, so a couple things. This link here is the general link to advising resources. This is more for faculty, right? But just to give you a little bit of a scope of how advising works at TCNJ, this is the big one that I'm going to send to anybody who is potentially interested, their students potentially interested in changing majors. This spreadsheet breaks down, this PDF breaks down every single department and every single requirement for what a current TCNJ student needs to do to change into that major. It is updated at least annually. It's potentially updated every semester. I don't remember, but this one was just posted as of October 2021. So this is hot off the presses. You can find the major that your student wants to change into. It will tell you prerequisites, grades that you need, application process, if it's even open or closed. Everything that you could want is in that PDF. It is incredibly helpful.
That is amazing. I was like, I have to copy and paste this and check. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that, Lindsay.
It is so helpful. Awesome. Yeah. And you know what? We're really, and sometimes occasionally it doesn't work out. I'm going to be honest. You know what I mean? Some of these, but the nice part is that they say it. They're like, listen, this is highly competitive. We would say that most people are able to get in, but not everybody. And there's others that are like, nope, this is going to be pretty tough. And then there's others that are like, hey, come on in. So it really kind of depends on your student and kind of where they're going. But that is like such an incredibly valuable tool for students that are interested in changing major. And the timeline for that can be very different as well. So I hesitate to say, they asked about timelines and, when that was, in terms of the process, that is the best source of information to start your student on getting this process going.
And just wanted to add to that. So if you have a student who is at the point where they're not sure if they'd like to change their major and, are just getting a sense of, maybe they want to be exploring some other things. I'll be touching on this a little bit about our Career Center, but would highly recommend having your student connect with our Career and Leadership Development. They have one-on-one appointments to kind of discuss those, potential how they're feeling about their major, kind of what are things, and helping them navigate. And it might just be, hey, I feel like I'm not enjoying this, and I don't even know where to start. So that is a really great resource for your student to be able to, just start that conversation and kind of be exploring some options. And they have some like assessments that they can do as well. So just wanted to put that little piece out there too when we're talking about that changing majors.
Yep, that's great. It's ironic because I just did one of those assessments because now I have this MBA and I'm like, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up next. So I can full-fledged say that they're great over there in the Career Center, but that's what they specialize in, especially for some of our students that are a little bit on the younger side, our first years, our sophomores, some of our transfers who came in, like, they have assessments and they have conversations and they can help kind of navigate, okay, well, what do you like to study and what are you interested in? And they, this is kind of a part of the process, right? And it speaks a little bit to kind of some other quick points that I wanted to share of this. So if your student goes to their current advisor and says, hey, I want to change majors and go somewhere else, what do I do? Yeah, they're not going to get a good answer out of that. They're going to get a blank stare and they're going to get, okay, good luck, but like, I can't help you, right? So academic advisors are only for their faculty in their specific school. So review the spreadsheet is step one. Step two, if your student would like to explore the potential of changing major and they know where they want to go, to Susie's point, they should reach out to the department chair in that major. So if you're a student who is in engineering, I believe, Macy, I think you said your student was an engineering student, and they are looking to maybe major or transfer or, apply to wherever they want to go. Let's say they want to be an art education major, right? They should go to the chair of the art department and say, hey, can I set up a meeting with you to discuss, what I need to do and just a bit about kind of where I am right now and where I would ultimately like to end up, which is somewhere in your department, right? So that's kind of where what your student needs to wrap their head around, is to having that conversation. And that chair, right, is that's part of kind of what they do, is help those students navigate those conversations. I will do, again, a little caveat. So the chairs teach and they have advising loads as well, right? They are not, these are, my understanding. Oh gosh, I assumed that, but yeah, I'm pretty sure they have advising students. They advise students as well. I think my grad assistant actually has one of hers. So all that to say, to be really cognizant of that. Now is the right time to go, right? So the next couple of weeks, your student's probably going to be meeting with their actual academic advisor in their major. But if they're looking to make a shift, they should try to reach out to the department chair to have that conversation as well. Again, just recognizing that, it's a couple of weeks and they probably have other students to talk to as well, but hopefully, they can make that connection, because maybe they can't change into the major now, right? They might have some work to do to get there. But if there's a class and a prerequisite to potentially changing majors, let's say, for example, and I'm going to make this up, but let's say they want to go into finance, right? Okay, that's actually probably a horrible example because I think it's a little bit more difficult to get into that one. But let's say you needed, like, I don't know, or let's say accounting and you needed accounting 201. They wanted to know you had a certain grade in accounting before you transferred into the department. Well, if that class is closed to non-business majors, they're going to need to have a conversation to see, like, is there a way I can take that class because I'm interested potentially in becoming an accounting major, right? That's why going to the department chair is a really helpful thing to do, right? And then kind of that next logical step. But going to your current advisor is not going to help you if you're looking to change majors, because they're not experts across the field in how other departments are operating for those types of pieces. Okay, timeline, I would say it depends. So step one, obviously, general rule of thumb, if your student applies and is able to make a transfer into a change of major as a first year, a sophomore, early junior, chances are, because we have a core liberal learning education, right, is that they would hopefully be able to make some moves and still be able to graduate on time, right? If your student, and again, that kind of depends on where you're going, right? So is your student staying in the same academic school and they're just moving from psychology to sociology, right? Or, mechanical engineering to civil engineering? Well, where they are in the sequencing and how that works, they probably are going to be able to get that relatively, done in a relatively kind of on time type of way in the next 4 years. If you decide, I did an internship between my junior and senior year of college. And I decided, oh my God, I don't think I want to be a meteorologist anymore. Well, I was a meteorology major. I didn't have general education classes. If I had switched at the start of my senior year into communications, I'd probably still be at Penn State, right? So it all depends on that piece, right? And the timing. So the time in terms of the 4 years or the 2 to 3 years for my transfer families that you have at TCNJ, but then also when in that time sequence and where you're going, right? If you're doing a completely radical shift, your general learning, your liberal education courses are going to count for something, but you might need to make time up in a winter course, in a summer course, or potentially an extra semester if that's the case, right? So a lot of that's going to depend, and there's not really kind of a clear-cut answer for you on that either. And then I know there's a question that I have waiting. I'll come back and take a different look. But this the minor process is the same. So like if your student's interested in picking up a minor, they're very content where they are there. Depending on where the minor is, if the minor is housed in the same school, then sure, I think starting with your regular academic advisor could be okay. They could give you the suggestion for somebody to reach out to. But if you want to, if you are a marketing major and you want to minor in graphic design, right, in the School of Arts and Communication, very different. Again, that's a department chair. Just reach out to the department chair and have your student do that, and then they can answer that question there. All right. So Macy, your question: health sciences isn't listed in the PDF.
I got you. So,
Okay.
So I think it should be on page 11, and it says health and exercise science. So they clump those together, if that's the health sciences that you're speaking about. So it should be on page 11 for you.
Okay, Suze, I'm almost done. We're going to go a few minutes over, but I'm going to be fast here. So I already talked about, these are just the final miscellaneous questions about this. So we did a question about 7-year med program. So the 7-year medical accelerated program, you are not able to, if the parent is listening who submitted this question, current students are not allowed to apply into that program. It is only on the front end coming out of high school. It's just so condensed in the 3 years that they don't allow students to opt into that program, which is a bit different from honors, and I can talk about honors next. So honors program, if your student came in as honors, that's one thing. But if your current student is a current student and they are interested in applying for the honors program, they do have certain number of spots that are available for that. I'm going to link you to the application page for that, and you can share that with your student and have your student take a look there. It's pretty straightforward in those pieces. And typically they had to have already completed 4 course units. So, this is going to be potentially open for first years who finished the fall semester. But typically, you would need at least those 4 course units to be qualifying. And then obviously a certain GPA amount, and there's other other details and things like that they should review. And then we got a final question about scholarships. So merit and need-based scholarships are only offered during the initial application process. So there's not something that you can kind of revisit after, like as an upperclassman, sophomore, junior, senior. Obviously, private scholarships are always out there as an option for you. And sometimes some departments will have department-specific or school-specific scholarships. So if that's worth mentioning, I will stick the link in here to the scholarship page on the financial aid website. And that's how you kind of declare your private scholarships if your student applies and is awarded any of those. But if you're in that boat, it couldn't hurt to send an email out to your department, I would say. Oh, I don't know. I maybe like the dean's office. Maybe somebody in the dean's office would be able to help you if there's like specific scholarships for that school or that department that might be available for your student to apply to. So though I cannot believe I just talked that much about all those things. Okay, very, very quickly going to talk about study abroad, and then I'm going to turn it over to Susie. Susie, thankfully, I think you only had like a couple small things, and we can go pretty fast,
and
right?
We knew going into this that this was going to be a very heavy academic focused, and I'm just so thankful that you have just this wealth of information because of your heavy work with our academic partners and all of that. So go on.
Well, I will make this fast. Yeah. Okay. So Center for Global Engagement, Study Abroad, we had a whole handful of questions about how that works at TCNJ. So traditionally, here's the cool part. We want everybody to have a global experience if they want to have it, right? And I'm saying this in a non-COVID. Let's leave COVID over here into the corner. The cool part about TCNJ is that I think a lot of institutions and a lot of students come in with the mindset of, oh, well, I have an entire semester and I'm having this completely immersive experience and I'm going abroad for 4 months and I'm doing that. My partner, Matt, did that when he was an undergraduate student. He spent 4 months in Alicante, Spain. We have those programs. They're great, right? But we recognize that there are some students who want to have that experience, but maybe don't want that full 4 months, right? Or maybe it just doesn't really line up with their schedule with all the other classes that they're taking and the sequencing for their major. So we have a couple different options for them that are shorter. So we have a Maymester period in May, which is a 3-week program. And then we also have one-off in winter and I believe in the summer, more like 1 to 2 weeks, shorter trips, right? Like 10 days. Some of them are faculty led by our TCNJ faculty and others are led and done through other third parties, right? the positive for the latter is that it just opens up all the different opportunities and places for your student to choose to go, right, in a regular traditional time that's not COVID, but obviously we'll address that in a minute. So they're really cool, right, in terms of doing that. There are some restrictions based on COVID. We do have students studying abroad right now. So one of my most favorite orientation leaders is doing his semester abroad in Italy. It was not his first choice. So he was slated to go to Japan last fall. And, again, because of COVID and restrictions, he had a limited number of places to choose from, but he's an international studies major. And as a result, you have to have, there's a requirement for that program that you do need to have a study abroad semester. So he's in Italy, and I actually haven't talked to him. I hope he's having a great time. I hope he's just eating his way through the whole country. But there are students who are abroad right now. I put in an application for another student who's trying to squeeze it in the spring semester as well, or for a May semester. So they are continually updating this. They're kind of the experts with all this as time goes on, in terms of where they can get to and where they can't. So yeah, the goal is that we're going to ramp that back up again here and get some students out there. So I will do the study abroad link for you. And then I will just do a quick plug. So October 20th is the final group advising 101 session. So they have like a drop-in to where you can learn a little bit more about the process. And then students can always schedule a one-on-one with somebody in the Center for Global Engagement office. B, do you have to be a junior to study abroad? Absolutely not. That was my very last point about all this before I turn it over to Susie. When you go, that is a great question to ask your advisor, right? So if you're in your department, they could come back and say, you know what, junior year is actually horrible for you. So maybe you could go sophomore year in the spring semester. Or we may have other departments that are like, education, for example, they traditionally have like an 8-week option for the School of Education where they would do half of their student teaching semester abroad. That's very specific. They have to go in a certain semester for that. So it all depends, but that's an excellent question to ask have your student ask their advisor, because they would be able to help you navigate where that fits in the broader picture of the 2, 3, 4-year experience they're having at the college. So I will drop those links in the chat, but I'm going to mute myself now. And Susie, let's move through all of the miscellaneous goodies that you have.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Lindsay. So appreciate all of your knowledge in that. So thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. There really wasn't that much miscellaneous outside of academics, since that was really our focus for this evening. Touching on a few questions. So some housing related questions specifically about the move out process from semester to semester, and then over the course of year to year. So semester to semester, when your student comes home for winter break, that is not something where they would have to clear out their entire room. They don't need to pack up their entire room, bring that all back home, and then bring it back for spring semester. It is only excuse me, it's only bring home what you need to bring home for that winter break. What I would highly encourage, and actually what we do encourage students to do, if there's things that you can bring home for Thanksgiving. I have a little something in my throat. I am going to grab some water. Hold on. My cough and all that. Okay, I'm back. So really just bring home what you need to bring home for winter break. And then, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. So Thanksgiving break was what I was saying. So if there's things that your student can bring home during Thanksgiving break, please have them do so. Start kind of making their way, packing up a little bit. But they can keep their stuff through winter break, but access to the residence halls won't be possible. So make sure they bring all of their valuables home. Resident Housing will be sending a communication to students about 2 weeks prior to move out, or to move out to head back home for winter break. That will have so much information in that. So please be sure your students are reviewing that. Okay. So question about parking. Students are receiving updates related to parking. So please have them keep their eye on their TCNJ email for those campus-wide communications about any changes related to parking. So that, I just want a random question about that. I don't know why I have this tickle in my throat. Okay. Tuition and billing. So there was a question about when the bill for spring 2022 will be posted and when it will be due. Lindsay, I'm going to have you drop that billing calendar. Sorry. Okay, so the dates for that, it will be sent to your student's email. A notification will be sent on December 1, 2021, and the payment due date is December 15th, 2021. Now, that was also what Lindsay was talking about, auxiliary access. So if you sign up to be an authorized user, well, if you have your students sign you up to be an authorized user and you indicate the financial piece or the billing piece, that's something where you would also be able to kind of be triggered with some of those communications. But otherwise, your student should receive that on the 1st. All right, there's a question about final on the last day. When's the latest he can move out for winter?
I'm looking that up on the website now.
Yeah, I think it's something about, there's a deadline of by this date or 24 hours after your last final, but Lindsay can confirm that. Okay. Okay. So then there was actually some questions about internships and the Career Center. And I don't know if I've mentioned this during our caffeine chats before, but I actually started out in the Career Center. So with my graduate internship, I have my master's in counseling from TCNJ. I had actually interned in the Career Center, and then I came back as a role in the Career Center before moving to the Office of the Vice President for Student Affairs. So Career Center was my original home. So they do some amazing work there. So in talking about when to start looking into internships and co-ops and things like that. So there is a really fantastic website that I'm going to have Lindsay share when you get a chance, Linz, talking all about kind of the timing of the internship and job search and kind of the things that your student can be doing. And it's just a really great resource. And so we do have some students, and it depends on the major as well, about sophomore internships, but most of our students, if they're doing an internship, would be more like junior and senior year. But that link gives some information about kind of the steps that they can take. Handshake is a really fantastic resource for our students to be looking up internship opportunities and job postings and things like that. And those are specifically posted for TCNJ students. So would highly encourage your student to explore those. We just recently had our career fairs. I believe they had 3 or 4 kind of major field specific career fairs, and that was new this semester. And I think it went really well. So they are, I don't have the specific dates for the spring career fair or career fairs if they're continuing that again, but it should be fall. It's usually late fall. Really encourage your student to be attending those. Just a great networking opportunity and kind of exploring some of the companies that are currently hiring. So that, yes, thanks for sharing that link. Okay. And then there was a question about counseling. I'm assuming that they were talking a little bit about like our mental health counseling resources. So we do have what's called our counseling and prevention services. So this includes our mental health services. It also includes our alcohol and other drug education program. It includes our anti-violence initiatives and a wealth of different resources to help support your student. And so that, Lindsay, we could just send the caps.tcnj.edu in the chat. I have the link in the other page that we're working off of. And so there's all information on there about how they can sign up to receive an appointment. There's group counseling sessions. There's really a wealth of support and resources that are available for our students. So highly encourage them to kind of explore that website and see what they might need. If at any point you get a sense that your student may be struggling or really feel like that they could use a check-in to kind of have some resources shared with them and connect them to kind of what department or office might be best for them to talk to, we have a care referral form. Lindsay, I'm gonna pull that up so that you can share that in the chat because I do think that's a really important resource. Anyone can submit a care referral, and really it's just providing us a little bit of background so that we might be able to reach out and just check in with your student, and make sure that they're plugged into any type of a resource that they might need. So that's a really great, oh, thank you. Yeah, and you can see it right on that website's care referral. So that was, we knew that today was going to be very heavy academic focused, and thank you so much, Lindsay, for sharing all of that. So those were really all the miscellaneous one-off questions that we wanted to focus on, or wanted to pull into this session. But yes, now we're
Yeah, I have one more thing to close us out before we talk about November really quickly. So my office is doing a couple of really helpful student events in the next couple of weeks. They're all on Wednesday, the next 3 Wednesdays. They're all at 10:30 and on the morning, 10:30 to 11:30 on Wednesday mornings. There's no class. And there's other, things that are potentially going on. But the one this week on the 20th is titled Building Your Circle, how to start and grow an advising relationship, right? So whether or not your students new or not, obviously geared a little bit more towards my first years and my sophomores, but even my juniors and seniors can come. We're going to talk about how you do that, right? So etiquette, and I've got some faculty staff, faculty advisors who are coming. I have some staff advisors and mentors who are coming. And it's just all about how are you going to cultivate your team, right? Your village of people who is going to help you be successful at TCNJ and even after the fact, right? There's so many students that I mentor that have long gone graduated who stay in touch. So we're going to help your student out. They should come. The one the following week, 10/27, that one is focused on I think I called it the passion panel, right? So we have a lot of students who have creative outlets, right? They are artists and musicians and creative soul writers and souls. And, you can have both, right? You can be in a science discipline and pick up a minor in something else. You don't have to take these creative outlets that brings them joy, right? And, forget about those because you're head fast into whatever your career you're going to be. And we're going to do a whole panel on how students have done that. And my very good friend, Erica Kalinowski, who's the dean for the School of Arts and Communication, will be joining us to talk even a little bit nuts and bolts on how a student would go about doing that, right? So that's going to be on the 27th. And then the 3rd, I mentioned this, we're teaming up with the Center for Student Success and just providing some basic, pause help for the registration process and having students feel more comfortable in navigating that. So they are going to, the first year, so the new students this semester, the first years, and the students will be getting an email from me probably later tonight, if not tomorrow morning, just with a reminder of all of these events. I will share with you all. I think, Susie, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Some stuff is having good attendance for. It's not everybody, but I know some of the sessions I've been running have been really low turnout. And I think that, there's a little bit on campus of a disengagement with the students. So my hope is that, we're going to notify everybody about this, again, so my new students are going to get an email, but everybody, if they're signed up to receive the This Week at TCNJ newsletter, the link for the RSVP to come to the events that I'm hosting will be in there. We're just really, hopefully post fall break, we're going to really just focus on getting students a little bit more connected and a little bit more engaged and coming out to events and things like that. So those are and that's just my corner, right, of the TCNJ world. There's so much going on. And I know that it can be overwhelming, but really having that conversation with your student, what are the touch points? Do they have something over here that's bringing them some joy? Is there an area of struggle where we can connect them to somebody to make, to build some resilience and get and muddle through some of this stuff to make it a little bit more of a better experience? That's really what we're all here for. So I would do a plug for those. That information is coming to the students. But otherwise, next time we meet, couple weeks, will be November. I forgot what we're talking about in November. So
we, and I just wanted to plug about, so if your student is, talking about that they're can't find things going on or things like that, This Week at TCNJ, both the Instagram account, which is just at This Week at TCNJ, or the emails as well that go out every Monday, I believe. So just really highly encouraging them to check that out and see all of the great programming that we have going on. Okay, so the next session will be our assistant vice president for student affairs over health and wellness, and also our director of CAPS / mental health services. He will be joining us, Mark Forrest, to speak a little bit about what we call home for the holidays. So really talking about that transition for your student being back home potentially if they're coming back home during some of the break, and kind of what that transition could look like, and what might be kind of some great strategies for you as parents to kind of use to navigate that, parents and family members. So that's at least the focus of one of the topics that we would be focusing on then. So otherwise, we'll do the same as we've been doing with sending out that registration, kind of collecting additional questions that we could talk about, and then and we'll go from there. So thank you all so much for coming this evening. It's been great to speak with all of you, and we really appreciate you being here. And thank you so much, Lindsay, for all of your amazing academic knowledge and bringing that to the table for us.
I've been a TCNJ for a decade. It was not overnight. I accumulated those bits and pieces over the years. And, I'm so lucky with my role on campus because I just get to know these deans and assistant deans and these faculty members, and then being a graduate student, even more in the School of Business. But they're so great. So, no, it was my pleasure. I hope everybody got a lot out of it. And we'll see you in a couple weeks. Have a nice evening.
Yeah. Good night, everyone.
Good night.